Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Nakima Levy-Pounds and Marquise Armstrong.
How are you guys doing tonight? I said, how are you guys doing tonight? Yes, yes. We want this to be a high energy event. Welcome to Assata Speaks. So for those who do not know, our 8-month-old daughter, her name is Assata. And she is actually named after the prominent activist Assata Shakur. And Assata means powerful and complete. And we think that that name captures not only the essence of the current movement for racial, social, and economic justice that many of us have been involved in, but it also is an opportunity for us as a community to have a platform where we can speak truth to power. And we can hear from a variety of people who have life experiences that can encourage us all to move forward in the fight for racial, social, economic, and environmental justice. Because how many know that it's time for a change, right? It's time for a change. We look at the things happening in Washington. I'm not even going to go there. We look at the things happening in our own community, and many of us are hungry to see things shift. We want to see the laws change. We want to see the policies change. We want to see new leadership. And what my husband always says is we are the change that we've been waiting for. Right? And we believe that. And we believe that this platform will inspire people to go the distance and to go to the next level. So with that.
Hello again. Thank you all for coming out. Yes, give my wonderful wife an applause. She deserves all the applause that are coming to her. I won't spend too much time because she said everything. I just really want to thank you all for coming out, for continuing to support what it is that we're doing, because we're really fighting for what's right for our community. That includes all of us. When one person is not getting justice, that means we're all not getting justice. So it's wonderful every time we throw an event and we look out at the audience and those who are in attendance, we always see a diverse crowd. We hope that it continues to expand, continues to grow. The next time we do this, because we will do this once a month, so stay tuned for the date and the speakers who we will have. But the next time, we want you to bring someone. So, again, thank you all for coming out. Assata, are you awake over there?
Yeah,
I hope you see
around.
your name on the marquee in the walls. You're only 8 months old.
She is like, what is going on here?
So get ready to be informed, get ready to be inspired and motivated to go from not just reading about and listening, but get inspired to action, to do something with the information that you have, so that, knowledge is power, wisdom is applied knowledge. So apply what it is that you hear tonight. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marquise. Oh, that was Assata cheering. All right. All right. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So as you know, there's a bar here, so we encourage you. Hi. If you want something to drink, you can actually get up during the show, so you don't have to stay frozen. And then for bathrooms, if you go out the door and downstairs, the restrooms are down there. I'll talk just briefly about how the show is going to work, right? So this is our debut of Assata Speaks. It's an idea that we've had for several months. Marquise and I both love TED Talks, right? We love being inspired, but sometimes TED Talks can get a little dry, right? And other times it's important for us to lift up the people in our own community and not just have to look for national experts, people outside the state. We have some of the best and the brightest right here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. So we said we need to showcase what people have to say, what they're offering, and some of you will be speakers at Assata Speaks in the future. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely see me at the end or send me an email, nakimalevypounds@gmail.com, and I'll talk to you, hear more of your story, ask you to share what you would share on stage, and then we will give you an opportunity, right? So, yes. Okay. So Marquise just reminded me, so a lot of what we do focuses on amplifying our message in the public realm and also on social media. So if you could go on Facebook and check in to the event, that would be wonderful. And then also our hashtag for tonight is Assata Speaks if you tweet or share this information on other social media. So I mentioned bathrooms are downstairs. After I am done up here, the next person that you're going to hear from is a young lady who is a college student at Hamlin. She's a freshman there. And her name is Kennedy Pounds. And she is going to perform a couple of spoken word pieces for us throughout the night. And after Kennedy does her first performance, then we're going to hear from our first speaker. And I will introduce that speaker at the time. Now, the speaker will have 20 minutes to deliver their message. At the end of their message, I will ask the speaker a couple of questions, and I will provide you all an opportunity to ask questions or to comment about the performance. This is meant to be interactive, right? So I want you guys to feel comfortable, feel like you're at home, a home away from home. And speaking of a home away from home, we want to thank the staff of Brave New Workshop for opening up this venue for us tonight. I mean, wasn't this room beautiful when you all walked in? This is such an amazing venue, and they worked so hard to open this space up to the community. So thank you all for all that you do. After we hear from our second speaker of the night, then we will have a 15-minute intermission where you'll have a chance to network. If you want a drink, you'll have a chance to get a drink. And then we'll come back, we'll hear another spoken word piece, and then our final speaker will close out the night. All right, does that sound good? Awesome, awesome. I'm just so excited that you all are here with us tonight to listen to the powerful voices of our speakers. And I hope that you're energized by this and you're inspired to do something great in the world. So with that, I'm going to call up our first presenter of the night, Miss Kennedy Pounds.
Nobody pray for me. It been a day for me.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. And this is an original poem titled Black Girl. Black girl, black hair, black girl, black skin, black girl too loud, black girl too thick, black girl, black music, black girl walks with a little too much sass, black girl got a little too much, black girl, black friends, black girl, white friends, black girl, private school, black girl isn't black enough, black girl is the whitest black person I know, black girl, Oreo, black girl thought she was black, but now she isn't black enough, black girl is confused, black girl doesn't know who she is, black girl always has to make everything about race, black girl doesn't smile, black girl hides her pain, black girl hates her blackness, black girl, black skin, black girl too dark, black girl can't even see her own shadow, black girl sees black everywhere, black girl sees black nowhere. Black girl is the only black girl in the class. Black girl learns her history from a white teacher. Black girl gets singled out in class. Black girl becomes the spokesperson for black people. Black girl takes a stand. Black girl says enough is enough. Black girl is unapologetic about who she is. Black girl embraces her blackness. Black girl dresses to impress. Black girl wears heels even though she is 5'10". Black girl afro. Black girl black pride. Black girl magic. Black girl, black is beautiful. Black girl knows her worth. Black girl, black girl, black girl. Your black is beautiful. Thank you.
It's the real one, baby.
Thank you, Kennedy, for that original spoken word piece. Kennedy also happens to be my daughter, so I'm really proud of her and how she uses her gifts and talents. She's actually been involved in a number of protests and has seen firsthand some of the issues that a lot of us are concerned about. So next, we're going to have our first Assata Speaks speaker of the night, a young man who is also a minister by the name of Matt Moberg. Matt is the curator of The Table, and The Table happens on Sunday nights. I've been a part of The Table, and it's a wonderful forum in which people come together primarily to learn about justice issues and to talk about how they can take their faith to a new level. So I want to invite Matt Moberg to the stage. Let's give him a rousing round of applause.
All right, here we go. Okay, sweet. I wish I would have submitted I like that song. That was good. It's like you knew me already. Good evening, you guys. It's good to be in this space. Can you give it up for the first family of Minnesota? Holy cow. That is a power couple right there. And we're all better because we have them in our midst. As a means of trying to establish a little familiarity with you, my name is Matt Moberg. This is my family right here. Come on now, you guys. Thank you. Don't clap. Don't feel bad about it. That's me right there, that guy. On my back is my hairy son named Wyatt. On to my right, your left, that is Sawyer. We call him Soy Sauce. He claims to love the Lord. We have yet to see the fruits of that. And then over there is my wife, my rock, Lauren. Speaking of which, by rock, you don't judge the absence of a bicep definition there. I was not flexing, okay? It's a lot rockier than that image would lead you to believe. Dr. Nakima Levy-Pounds asked if I would step up on this stage tonight, and I do not feel worthy to do so. When I look out in this room, especially after that spoken word, this is not a space where I belong. I do not have the substance, the history, the track record that warrants me being here. And yet, if I can use this space the next few minutes, I want to share with you what it was, the moment that I held that woke me up to the need to give my life to the work of anti-racism and pursuing racial justice. And the moment for me that was a catalytic moment, is also a very painful moment for our city. On November 15th, 2015, 2 years ago, a young man who had only walked the earth for 24 years of his life was taken from our city in the span of 61 seconds. At 24 years old, the blue bullets of the Minneapolis Police Department broke through the black body of Jamar Clark, adding another name to a long list that would only grow over the years of young black men that were killed at the hands of those who swore and who were paid to protect them. Over the 18 days that followed that space and that tragic event, outside of the precinct, our city watched those streets become a base camp for freedom fighters, for leaders like Dr. Nakima Levy-Pounds, who led us into that space and who demanded with dignity and grace that the truth come out and the truth be told. Despite the portrayals of the precinct in the media that held the protesters under trial as if the trial wasn't for the police, as a pastor who has gone into many different churches and many different sacred spaces, I can tell you right now that the time I had on those streets with many of you was the holiest ground my feet have ever touched. I've never seen anything like it before. Next to many of you, I learned firsthand that every lament really is a love song. I learned firsthand that beliefs only matter so much until the fact of the matter comes down to, what are you willing to bleed for? What are you willing to give your life over to? Had it not been so flipping cold on those nights, I would have taken off my shoes because my feet have never touched holy ground like that before. And I don't know that they ever will again. And I remember specifically feeling that way about that space because I remember being afraid that I never get to share it with you again. 8 days after the death of Jamar Clark, 4 white men walked into that crowd and fired off 8 shots, hitting 5 bodies of peaceful protesters. I wasn't there that night. I was there 5 of the previous 7 nights, but on the 8th night, I was at home watching Cars 2 with my youngest son. And you can imagine then my surprise that when I woke up the next morning, somebody was saying otherwise. At about 6:30 in the morning, I woke up to my phone violently shaking with missed calls and messages saying and asking, Matt, why would you do what apparently I had done? Word reached that all of a sudden, I found out through these missed calls and through all these messages that the protesters had been shot and that I indeed was the shooter. How did that happen? This right here. A photo went out into the World Wide Web, into the social media atmosphere, asking, who is this man? Is he involved with the shootings that went down last night? That man right there, by the way, is me. So I woke up, and, I'll tell you this. As a pastor, and as many of you are leaders, I'm sure you can understand that when somebody puts your face out there on social media and maybe talks a little noise around it, it is what it is. Obviously not ideal, but it's a moment that you can manage and move on. You can deal with it and get over with it. The problem is that it wasn't just somebody that put up this picture. The person who posed that picture was a man by the name of Sean King, who has about 923,000 followers, 923,000 followers who are all too quick and willing to pass that photo along to their thousands of followers. And so before I even had my morning coffee, I was well aware that there was at least 1 million people trying to figure out who is this white guy and what did he do the night before. Needless to say, I was a little shook. I got a little anxious, and I got a little scared. And then I got a little sad. And as I was trying to parse out these different feelings and these different reactions and trying to find some sense of stability, some sense of grounding, trying to understand where do I really go from here, I found myself getting really angry. And I found myself getting really defensive. And I found myself wondering why this would happen to me, of all people. I mean, I am somebody who not only voted for Obama not once but twice, but I knocked on doors for Obama. I had Roots saved on my DVR. Everybody knew that I was reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' latest books because every time I picked up that book, I took a photo of it and put it on an Instagram for everybody to see. I understand there are a lot of bigots in our city, and there are a lot of people who would be likely suspects for doing something as stupid as they did that night, but I did not fit the profile of that man. And so I was pissed off, and I was starting to panic. And I called one of my friends, one of my favorite leaders in our city, Pastor D. McIntosh, and I proceeded to emotionally vomit all over D. And D, being the pastor and being the friend that she is, she allowed it to happen. She calmly and collectively kind of walked me through what the next steps would look like, how we could find a way forward inside of this and perhaps bring some clarity. And for all the goodness and kindness and grace that she brought to me, I failed to return the favor. At the end of the phone call, I said something that for the past 2 years, I've been trying to forget and have failed to do so thus far. I said, D, I understand that people are upset. I understand that it's getting intense out there. I understand that the anger is palpable. But how are you going to make me a suspect just because of the way that I look? And in Dee's silence, I heard a lot. My story started to speak up in that moment right there. And in Dee's silence, I started to recognize some things that I've been running from. I started to see some things that I've been trying to hide from. I started to know some things that I didn't want to know. And despite my best of efforts to be angry, defensive, push away, and despite all of my tripping over Sean King's tweet, I realized in that moment that he wasn't wrong. I realized that there was some truth in that tweet. Because while I was not with those boys on that night, that didn't really matter. While my fingers never did touch that trigger, I knew that I was still responsible for loading that gun. I've been doing it since the day I was born. with every explicit and implicit, conscious and subconscious act that I have committed, bent on figuring out what is my intention as opposed to asking what is the impact, that was me loading the gun. With every night that I watched the nightly news, as I listened to white news anchors talk about black pain and never have the nerve to ask, are you qualified to do so? That was me loading that gun. From kindergarten to college, from only seeing white teachers in front of the class, and me never wondering or saying out loud, am I missing a voice inside of my educational process here? That's me loading the gun. With every racist joke that slipped by me and slipped out of me in silence, where the punchline punched everyone but me, loudly, that was me loading the gun. With every protest that I showed up at, with a cape on my back and a question in my hands of what can I as a white person do, as opposed to a confession out of my mouth that's saying, what have I as a white person done? Well, that's me loading the gun. For every friend of color that I've called on the phone, like Dee that morning, where I asked her, no, I'd say I demanded of her to prioritize my feelings over her own oppression. As if that wasn't the very thing that was perpetuating the epidemic of white supremacy in the first place. That was me loading the gun. Please beware of white boys who believe that they are woke. Watch out for them. Because what we tend to do is we show up at a precinct under the guise of protest, but we're there just to perform. We want everyone to be our friend, but we are kind of indifferent about whether or not everyone is free. Yeah, we're loud about racism, we're loud about racists, but those out there, not this one in here. I sat at my table, you guys, that morning for hours, feeling paralyzed. Because there's a question that came with this photo. It was a question that asked, has anybody seen this man? And for the first time in my life, I recognized that I hadn't. I didn't know. I didn't know that I had been loading a gun and weaponizing my whiteness every hour of every day that it went on unexamined. Beware of white boys who believe that they are woke, and yet they don't have the audacity to recognize that they first were asleep. My racial awareness, if you will, began in that moment right there. Not when I all of a sudden ran into new information, but when I can no longer outrun my own implication. When I can no longer scrub all the blood off of my hands. And as these things were being passed around, as this photo was now going viral amongst different people, and rightfully so, we're all concerned. We're all trying to figure out the identity. As that is going around, I recognized I only had one thing I could do. I had to turn myself in. I had to let go of the facade, let go of the mask. I had to be honest. I had to come clean. I had to stop loading that gun. I had to set it down. See, white supremacy is this invisible power that perpetuates the disparities, and we know about the disparities all too well here in Minneapolis. Our city is the second worst city when it comes to racial disparities in this country, and for so long I have found that pain to be profitable, and I didn't have the courage to name it as so. I've always been the shooter, and I've never been the shot. Everything changes, though, when you let the gun sit down. It's less invisible at that point. Over the past 2 years, as I've tried to do this work with our community at the table, and with my own life and my friends and my network, we have stumbled and we have screwed up and we've looked like idiots, but we've refused to stop because of so. We can't, there's too much at stake. And so we've kept moving forward, and we've kept going longer, and we've kept going further, and we've taken some hits because of so. And I can tell you that white supremacy, how palpable the powers of racism are here in our city, it looks a lot less invisible when you're on this side of the gun as opposed to that side of the gun. For our community in and of itself, over the past 2 years, we have had thousands and thousands of dollars taken away from us. I've had friends that I've known since childhood who will no longer talk to me. I have family members that raised me as a baby that will no longer speak with me. I have people in our community that left our church under the grounds of Matt Moberg as a divisive leader who spits hateful rhetoric because he is more concerned about founding a community on Black Lives Matter than he is about founding a community on Jesus Christ. And then I had this one right here from a couple of weeks ago where we were standing in front of a light rail and there was a live stream that was capturing the whole moment. And the moment that the live stream focused on us white folk who are out there witnessing the brilliance and the courageous of these young black activists who are laying their bodies on their line for a city that refused to do the same for them, the moment that the cameras and the live stream focused on us, people from the white parts of town started to chirp up. They said things like, "Run them over," "traitors," "What are our clergy doing out there?" And then one line in particular that really messed me up. "Aren't they on our side?" I've received a lot of different words in the past. I've received death threats from Klansmen, even on Twitter. But there's something about that that is painful and as frustrating and as ignorant as it is, it gave me hope. My hope was that the same kind of silence that hovered over my own ignorance and my own collision with reality, in that own space where I had to step forward and recognize that the racists, they're not all out there. There's a lot in here. There's a lot of healing that can happen in a space like that. Not just from running into new information, but when you can no longer outrun your own implication. My prayer and my hope is that we all, especially us white folk, would come to that place where we have no choice but to sober up and recognize how dirty our hands have been. We cannot wake up until we first realize that we have been fast asleep. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.
That was so powerful.
Thank you.
First of all, I had no idea that you were...
Why is she falling asleep during if it was so powerful? That's frustrating.
I think it was the sound of your voice. That's actually a good thing. But I had no idea that people thought that you were one of the folks who shot up the 4th precinct. Yeah. This was my first time hearing that story. So how did your wife react?
Oh, she wasn't psyched. Yeah, she wasn't. Where is she? She's here somewhere. There she is, yeah. No, it was unnerving. Well, it's just like one of those things where it's like you just don't know what your play is, right? And at the same time, what was very complicated about it is being white and being a part of a network with a lot of people who were very critical of Black Lives Matter, about the protests and everything. I knew that if I freaked out in a public way, that would become ammo used against Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. And so it was a really weird thing to go about, but yeah.
What played a role in your decision to join the movement and to begin to call out white supremacy and to examine some of the issues that you brought forward?
For me, as a pastor, my story is centered on the person of Jesus, who was an unarmed man of color who was killed by an over-militarized government. And, you know, when I think about Jesus, he says we got to follow him, and he was the one who was shot. He was never the shooter. And so that, my hands are tied at that point. I mean, I didn't have much of a say after that. Mm-hmm. But it's amazing because I would say that I've been a Christian for the past 14 years. I've known Jesus maybe the last 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you have a podcast.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And
well,
how people
yeah.
can access it?
Don't ask too many questions about the podcast right now. It's still kind of in the works. Yeah. Still in the works.
What's your vision, though, for the podcast?
Well, I want to.
'Cause I've been one of your podcast guests.
I know you have. I want to amplify and just keep lifting up the voices like yours. Dr. Nikema Levy-Pounds, let me just brag on her really quick, is one of the most inspiring individuals I've ever met. Not only because she, go ahead, yes, get that. Not only because she has the prophetic vision to be able to see reality as it is, but she has this passionate commitment to actually act upon what she sees. And so more and more people that can come around a leader like her, I want that to happen. And so that's really the heart behind it. And then, if I have a podcast, I can sit down and talk with you about these things, since that was whether or not it ever goes public.
So I'll ask one last question, and then I would like for any members of the audience who want to ask a question or to comment to do so. What is the biggest lesson that you think that you've learned, especially over the last couple of years?
Is that I have a lot to learn. I mean, and that's such a basic, maybe even cliche thing to say, but it's such a dangerous thing to believe that you are woke, to believe that you have it figured out. You do so much damage. You do so much harm. But I think the biggest thing, that's my timer right there. Yep. My bad. I think the biggest thing is I went into the work of racial justice. I wouldn't have articulated it like this, but I thought that the ultimate aim is that everybody is friends, when really the ultimate aim is that everybody is free. The ultimate aim is not unity, it's equity. And we pursue those things, but yeah, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so the title of your presentation
Yeah.
is Always Waking,
Never woke.
Never Woke.
Yeah.
That was powerful.
Yeah.
Always waking,
Yeah.
never woke. So I'd like to invite anyone from the audience who has a comment about what you heard from Matt, or who has a question. Marquise has a microphone, so he can come out. If you can just raise your hand, if you would like to say something.
Not at the same time, everybody.
For those of us who have not yet had the courage to take the first steps to finding the truth, who want to get involved, who know that we can only listen, what are the first steps we can take to being useful in our listening?
Yeah. To being useful in your listening? Yeah. Well, I'd say that the biggest obstacle that I recognize in myself is that learning to trust the voices of those in pain. And so not waiting for the official news report to interpret somebody else's pain, but to actually move in proximity and closeness to those who are in pain when they describe the reality for you. That has been, I think, the biggest wave that once you receive. In the information age, there is no excuse that we do not understand what is happening around us, right? I mean, we have the resources, we have the voices, the stories are abundant, they're all around us. The question is whether or not we have the intentionality to take them seriously and the integrity to actually follow up with it. And so the useful, I would say, is what does this mean? The things that we are seeing right now ought to absolutely wreak havoc on white perspectives and paradigms that we have inherited and not call into question. I don't think there's one universal response, but I do think for each person. But I do think that when we take seriously voices of people in pain, there is a response inside of it and an invitation usually attached. Yeah.
Hey, Matt. I just wanted to say I attended the Martin Luther King celebration that you had at the table.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to tell you I was really impressed by the way that you hosted that.
Thank you.
It made me feel really welcome. I was a little nervous coming in there because I haven't been in a church for a long time, so I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Yeah.
I thought it was really dynamic.
Thank you.
And I'm really, it made me feel like I wanted to come back. Mm-hmm. And it made me feel very welcome. And I really appreciate the things that you are doing through your ministry and just through the fact that you will take your ministry and address the issues that are with us right now today.
Thank you.
So
I really appreciate that. We'd love to have you back too.
Yeah.
We would.
I'll be there.
In fact, can I make a quick plug real quick?
Yeah.
Just because I think that people in this room would really be into this. On Monday night, the 23rd today? 26th, we have a Navajo man by the name of Mark Charles who is coming all the way from Washington, D.C. to tell the history of America from the perspective of a Native American. It's going to be powerful. It's an important space. I would love to have you back for that. It's Monday night, 6:30, 4747 Lindale Avenue South. We'd love to have you. And we'd love to have anytime. Come back. Thanks for saying that, though. I really appreciate that.
And you're on Facebook as well, so people can follow
Correct,
the table, like the table on Facebook.
Correct, yep.
I'll take one more question.
Okay, so cool. So first of all, it's just a comment, but I just want to condone you and thank you for stepping up and feeling, the courage to get up and express yourself. I'm a biracial child, so I come from, I guess, the shooter and the one being shot, per se.
Yeah.
So it was a really powerful place to be in the in-between and to hear your story. And, I feel like as, African Americans as well, too, it's good for us to hear, your side of things, because I feel like you do a great job, not just presenting the person by their skin tone, but like that we're all people and that, we all go through our own, trials and our own struggles, and that we all go through things that, that make us who we are, and to personal development and to be able to expand beyond that is really important. So I just thank you coming from both sides. It was really powerful and it was really touching. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's give Matt another
Thank you, guys.
round of applause.
Thanks.
Always woke, always waking, never woke.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Matt Moberg. Yeah. So we'll just have music for a couple minutes while our next speaker gets ready to come up. So DJ Cypreme, drop it. I've always wanted to say that.
Open your ear. Don't allow these words to be ignored by you. I'm hearing lullabies, continuing the same old line. Feeling just to feel is a crime. Besides, I know you wouldn't mind trying something new. So let's try. We can work it out if you want love. Let those harmonies to me escape your lips.
All right, if everyone could take their seats, please. I'm going to bring up our second speaker. If everyone could please take their seats, with the exception of the people over there. Are you guys enjoying the show so far? See how it's a little bit different, right? Yeah, we want our speakers to take us somewhere, right? To not just force us to deal with the things going on in our heads, but also the things going on in our hearts. That's how change begins to happen. So with that, it's my honor to bring up our next speaker of the night, a woman by the name of Dr. Sylvia Bartley. And Sylvia is the Global Director for Philanthropy, the VP of Medtronic. And the title of her presentation is The Gift from Being Black and Blue. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sylvia Bartley.
Good evening, everybody. So, as you can tell, I'm one of those tall black girls with high heel shoes. And I wear them proudly. One of my very first childhood memories is of my baby brother, Anthony. Anthony was 15 months old when he passed away. I vividly remember holding my mother's hand, staring at his tiny body in a casket. He was really still, and he looked very peaceful. He had on blue pants and a white shirt. He had a rosary bead around his neck. His lips, they were white and cracked. His hair was black and curly. He looked so at peace, yet he was gone. And I remember asking myself, where did he go? His body is physically there, but his spirit is gone. And so began my quest to seek answers to what is the purpose of my life. Why am I here? Where will I go after I leave this lifetime? And will I ever meet my brother's soul again? A few months later, I had to undergo major heart surgery. I had a patent ductus arteriosus, a hole in my heart. And I had this huge operation. I was in a lot of pain. And I don't remember this, but my mother told me I didn't speak for a whole year. And I have no recollection of that. And I stand here and I ask myself, what happened that made me go inside, that made me retreat to look for answers, to find that peace and solace that I couldn't find in the physical world? What is it that made me want to disconnect and find my spirit? More importantly, I asked myself, what was the trigger that made me reconnect with the physical world? Why did I come out of that after a year of not having my voice? And I recognize, when I think about that moment, that this was probably the moment that the seeds of depression took root in my mind. And so my life since then has been a roller coaster, some may say. Some successes, followed by a challenge, followed by pain, followed by suffering, followed by retreating. So I had successes and challenges, followed by pain, followed by suffering, and then I would retreat. I would retreat into myself to find that peace that I could never find. And I'll give you a small example. My first job was in a medical school in the Heart of London, and I was a research technician. I was the only black person in the Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, or maybe there was another person, I can't remember. It was a big faculty. The point is I was a minority. And at that point, I was a single parent. I was raising 2 children, living hand to mouth, really experiencing some poverty. But I knew education was my route out. And while working full-time, I took a day off once a week, and I studied for my BSc in applied biology. I did okay, and my supervisor said to me, well, look, you're doing all this research, you've got good outcomes, your BSc was really good. Why don't you register for a PhD in neurophysiology? I nearly fell over because that was never in my path and never in my sights. This was just for the white academics that I worked with, those with a private background, the middle class people that really spoke well, like the Queen, not like me. And so it took me a while to even say yes to that opportunity, because I never thought that was for me, because I listened to the narrative about being disadvantaged, being a single parent, fitting into the stereotype of amounting to not much but a burden on society. And so I took the opportunity with both hands, and I was really pleased with myself. So for me, that was a success. And a few days later, I was standing in a cafeteria, and there was a white lady who was a research person. And she'd been doing her research for 3 years. And she heard that I registered, and she was beside herself. She looked me up and down, and said, what are you doing registering for a PhD? People like you don't do that. You are a mockery to our education system. What do you know about the somatosensory cortex? What do you know about these pathways? All of which she said in front of my supervisors, my colleagues, people I knew, and people I didn't know. I felt so embarrassed. The only thing I could do was hang my head and retreat inside. And while I retreated, I heard this quiet but firm message. Be silent, don't say anything. Just do what she says you can't do. And so for the next 4 years, I put my head down, I studied like crazy, I did all I could to get my PhD research done and then write my thesis. My supervisor came down on me like a ton of bricks. Every time he thought that my work wasn't good enough, my results weren't analyzed properly, my writing wasn't accurate, he came down on me and made sure that I did what he wanted me to do and reach his level of expectation, which was excellence. And so I listened to him. It was hard. I listened to him. And by the time I was ready to submit my thesis, I was just exhausted. I was nervous, but I was excited at the same time. And we both walked up to my PhD viva, where this tall man, he was about 6'4", he opened the door, and he was my examiner. And he looked down on me because he was so tall. And then he said, hello. And I couldn't get hello out of my mouth. I was so nervous. Because I was going for my viva voce, the oral examination, that typically can take anything from 4 hours to 8 hours, where they can examine you, 2 experts, about every aspect of your work and anything all around it. You had to demonstrate this was your work and you knew your stuff. And so when I couldn't say a word and he recognized I was nervous, he had this warm smile on his face. His spirit was really welcoming. And he said, are you nervous? And I was like, yeah. And he said, don't be nervous. We've read your work. This is a celebration of your work. You have passed. Your work is excellent. This is just part of the process. And I was so delighted. I walked into that room. We sat down. We had a great conversation about my work. We talked about my future. And I walked out of there, or I should say, I floated out of there with a PhD in neurophysiology. Who, me, the black girl from Croydon, a working class family? It was amazing. And we walked back to our faculty in East London, and we walked into our seminar room, and it was full of the academics in the physiology department. They were there with smiles, open arms, and champagne. They were so proud of me. And that was a moment I was moved to tears, because most of those people, they didn't believe in me. They weren't racist, they were just a little bit naive. They came up to me and said, "Wow, you did it. We are so proud of you. We told him not to register you. We told him it would be too much for you. We told him he was crazy to do that." But what did my supervisor do? He never told me, and to this day has never told me that. He just made sure I was excellent. He came down on me like a ton of bricks because he didn't want me to be what my critic says I would be. And he really drove me towards excellence. So I felt good, but a couple of days later, the feelings seeped in and I retreated internally, because depression, it just sneaks up on you. And I started to ask the question, now what? What is my path and what is my purpose? 5% of the global population suffers from depression. Women, especially black women, have a high incidence of depression. Research shows that there's a hormone called cortisol, and there's elevated levels of this hormone in black women. And this hormone, when it's elevated, triggers inflammation. And inflammation means you have higher risk of getting chronic diseases such as diabetes and cancer. So let's talk about black women. Black women, over centuries, have been taught to be all things to all people. They've been taught to suppress their feelings because it doesn't matter what you're feeling. You've got to be all things to everybody else. You've got to put yourself aside and move forward to support others. Black women are expected to be super women. They're expected to navigate through an environment that is not conducive for us to thrive. It's not conducive for us to be excellent. We have to push through our emotions, ignore it, suppress it, and carry on. Black women are expected to be the carer, the mother, the daughter, the rescuer. Yet, we do so, and we do so in silence. Our emotions may not be healthy, but we silence our emotions. And we want to be strong. We don't want to be seen as weak, so we push through. And ultimately, when we do that, it manifests itself physically or emotionally, and it can get ugly. So what do we do when we see ugly? Oh, Tamika, wow, she's the angry black woman, you know? And then there's Susan. Oh my God, I heard she's unbalanced. You better watch out for her. And then, by the way, there's Donna. Which one of her personalities is going to show up for our meeting today? So instead of showing our sisters the compassion that they need when you recognize that they're suffering, we black women, we do it too. We just conform to the stereotype. We ostracize, we name, we add to their burden. We don't show compassion. And by the way, compassion, that starts at home. Compassion starts with self. When I'm not feeling good, or if I slip up, or if I go the wrong way in the highway, I berate myself like it's the worst thing that I could ever do as a human being. I would never speak to another human the way I speak to myself. And yet, how can I show compassion for others if I can't show compassion for myself? So it shows up ugly. And when it shows up ugly, we need to support our sisters. So here's the good news, because it's not all doom and gloom, because it's time for us, all of us, sisters and everybody else, it's time for us to change the narrative. It's time for us to rewrite the story and create a new story that really talks about supporting our emotional health and not being afraid to say, I need some help. The Black Women Health Imperative is an organization based out of DC. It's a non-profit organization that focuses 100% on the health of black women. It looks at how you can maintain healthy physical and emotional health for black women. It's a phenomenal organization. About 20 years ago, they conducted a market survey with over 38,000 black women in the United States. The survey's aim was to look at how black women see their health and how they want to get healthy and live that healthy life on a consistent basis. In this publication, it's full of rich stories from beautiful black women that talk about how healthy they are and their healthy practices. There is more right with black women than there is wrong with black women. And it talks about practices that everybody in this room can do. And these are practices that I use. And irrespective of if you've got healthcare or if you have access to these resources that you can't afford, anybody can do these things. Meditation. We've all heard about meditation. It's not a phase, it's not a trend. It's a lifetime commitment that you have to do in order for your journey to continue. Meditation is tapping into the silence between your thoughts, being still for a minute, for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It really is connecting with the internal and connecting with the universe and the power greater than us. And it really does work. And it's not just a feeling, there's science behind it. With the advancements in medical technology, functional MRI scans and PET scans, there is physiological changes that occur when you meditate. And the changes occur with the blood flow, with pathways being stimulated. There's pathways associated with your sense of well-being. There's pathways associated with your negative chatter. Meditation increases the pathways that are associated with your sense of well-being and decreases those with the negative chatter. Structures change in size. Hormones and chemicals, they change in concentration with meditation. And that's all backed up by credible science. So this isn't a feeling, this is real. And the more science that comes along, the more this is getting integrated into basic medical pathways for treatments such as depression, cancer, or other chronic illnesses where there is chronic pain. Sister girls, they are your best resources. Ones you can trust, they can hold you accountable, safe space to heal, to say, look, I'm not feeling good today. How many times have somebody said, how are you feeling? And you said, I'm feeling great, when actually you're feeling crap. Instead of saying, I'm not feeling well emotionally, I can do with your support, and this is how you can help me, they are the best resources ever. And if you're fortunate enough to have access to a good healthcare system, therapy is the best thing and the best gift I did for myself. If I'm not traveling, once a week, I'm in my therapist's office unapologetically, talking about myself and my emotions and how I feel in a structured way that it can be released in a healthy way. And it is the best gift I've given myself in my whole entire life. Exercise, whether you walk around the 10,000 lakes or you go to the Lifetime gym and you elevate your heart rate and increase the blood flow, this is the perfect way of managing your health as well as your emotional health. It decreases those cortisol levels and increases endorphins. And endorphins are the natural analgesic, the natural feel-good drugs. Mindful eating. There is actually a connection between your gut and your brain. The gut-mind connection. What inflames your stomach with bloating inflames the cells in your brain. And that doesn't make you feel good. So by simply changing your diet, cutting out gluten, cutting out preservatives, eating natural foods, foods from the ground, can really help improve your emotional health, as well, of course, as your physical health. So if I bring it back to where I started and I think about my little brother, and I was 4 years of age when I didn't speak for a whole year, and I wonder why I retreated internally, I now say with confidence that my depression is a gift. And it's a gift because it forces me to align with my spiritual self, with my internal guides, to figure out what is my path and purpose, to evolve as much as I possibly can to my highest self in this lifetime. It forces me to really be still and question why the pain, why the suffering, what's to come of it. And I realize that maybe this is the answer. Maybe the answer is I am supposed to live or be a spiritual being having a human experience, as opposed to being a human being having the occasional spiritual experience. Thank you.
Keep applauding. Hello, can you hear me? Thank you so much, Sylvia, for delivering a powerful, powerful message. You were speaking my language. I was back there in my seat getting my dance on because you were talking about therapy and mindfulness and talking about the spirit. And I happen to own a mental health practice, so I was like, yes, she's saying everything that I want people to hear. Amazing job. You said so much. You said something that I wish I had my phone because I wanted to quote. I want to go on Facebook and Twitter and tweet it and hashtag it. You said, there is more right with black women than there is that is wrong. Own that. Kennedy, did you hear that? Her poetry spoke right to what it was that you were speaking about.
Yeah, indeed.
You talked about your personal journey and the things that you experienced and the things that you had to overcome. And you had many people saying what you couldn't do. And then you had one individual, I'm sure you had several, but in the field that you were in, you had one individual who believed in you. Can you speak a little bit about how important it is for us to support those around us and to encourage them?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So this one individual, his name is Professor Michael Armstrong James, and we call him Madge fondly. Okay. And in a place where, you know, you are the only one, and you do experience racism and misogyny on a almost daily basis, there was this one guy who, I call him my angel, my earth angel, but in a business sense, I would say he was a transformational leader. And this is what leaders do. When you see someone that has potential, and you feel that they can help to transform the industry that you're in, you will invest in them despite what people says. So people told him that he was crazy. His white peers who he hangs out with told him not to do that. But for some reason, he decided to do it anyway. And he never told me, but what he forced me to do, as I said, was be excellent. And so in everybody's life, you need that person or those people because it's a journey and different people that enter your life at different times. Now, this was a white 60-year-old man. Do not have an image of what your angel should look like. Come on. Right? Yes. Your angel will be open to it showing up, your help showing up in any shape, form, or size. And only when you're open can you receive and reap the rewards of that.
Wow. 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 Thank you. So you are an author as well, not just a doctor in neurophysiology. I had to write that down. I actually had to Google it to see how to spell it. But you're also an author in addition to that. And so her book is here. It's titled Turning the Tide. Can you speak about what the book is about?
Sure. So the book is Turning the Tide, Neuroscience, Spirituality, and My Path Towards Emotional Health. So really the message is around depression and vulnerability. As I mentioned, so often we hide these things, we mask it, and I was successful in doing that for a majority of my life. Only the last 3 years did I use the words, I have depression, and say it out loud. And firstly, I had to recognize it for myself, and then secondly, I had to be vulnerable and say it out loud. And so the path and purpose question, why do I have depression? Why do I work for Medtronic? Why am I traveling around the world? Why am I meeting with all these physicians? Why am I so engaged in community? Why do I love black people so much? Why do I have a passion to really help the disparities? And still not believing that I got a PhD in neurophysiology, but so then questioning it all the time. And then recognizing that there's a connection. There's a connection with depression, with movement disorders, with Parkinson's disease, with schizophrenia, with Alzheimer's. It's all the same pathway. And then there's also a connection with spirituality. There's a study that shows brain tumors. They dissected brain tumors, and they showed basically that if you dissect brain tumors in the solar part of the brain, it increases as your transcendence, which basically is your spirituality, your self-awareness. And that's within the same area that's associated with depression and all these degenerative diseases that causes so much pain. Wow. And so the intersection of all three of those is that powerful message that I want to deliver to say, look, depression happens, you can manage it mindfully. Obviously, there's spectrums of depression, so if you're major depressive, you need to get medication, and there's some surgical intervention as well. But it really is the pathways behind all three of those and the things you can do to manage it, and then using that to be compassionate, and then bringing that into all aspects of your life, be it the corporate office, in your home, and with your friends and families. So it's an intersection of all three and the science behind it all.
So her book is here. It is available. It is only $15. You heard what the message that she just delivered. You see some of the things that she's talking about in this book. I highly encourage you, if you are able to get yourself a copy of this book, read it, and share it even with people that you know who may be struggling with depression or other mental health issues, because mental health is a major thing. I think it should be considered a medical crisis. Because there are far too many people who walk in silence, struggling with depression, anxiety, and other mental health concerns. So, thank you. $15. But do we have any questions? Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Sylvia?
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, I don't really have a question, just a comment. And I had no plans on getting on the microphone tonight. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing your story. As a PhD neural, what is it?
Physiologist.
Thank you. There was some connection there, right? I mean, for me, I don't have a PhD, but I study in computer technology, and I have a very similar story where there was an angel who didn't look like the angel that maybe I thought an angel would look like, but came into my life at a very pivotal point in my life. And so it was just so touching that you having a PhD and me not having a PhD, that we have a connection there. And
absolutely.
so thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you very much.
That is a powerful black woman who spoke as well. She happens to be my sister.
Are you a sister?
Hello, my name is Latasha. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to know if you could kind of elaborate on the signs and symptoms of depression, because I had a similar situation, and I went to the doctor, received treatment, but I posted a post on Facebook just to kind of let all my peers know that depression is real and it can kind of happen to everybody. And the most questions that I received in the inbox, people wanted to know, what did those signs and symptoms look like? So do you mind sharing?
Yeah, no problem. And I'm no expert. I've just got my, oh, no, thank you. I just got my own experience. And we actually have a board-certified psychiatrist at the back here that deals with mental health and has an interest in black mental health as well. So you can go to her afterwards for some real answers. But depression shows up different for different people. It's not about being sad, because that is a small part of it. It really is about the negativity that you feel. I just spiral down very quickly, and if people say things to me, I take it very negatively, and then I carry that a lot around with me, and then it comes out kind of bad because people may think that I am off. And then there's headaches, there's cloudiness. I realize that I can't focus so much on my work. It takes me forever to write a comprehensive email because it's so cloudy and messed up in there that I can't, I think I'm writing it accurately, but I'm not. And then it's really that feeling of just hopelessness and wanting to disconnect from the outside world and wanting to just stay inside of me and not open my eyes and not get out of my bedroom. And so it kind of shows up differently. And now I can I notice the signs. The signs for me is, okay, I'm hearing things very negatively. Everything is an issue. And then I know then I've really got to throw everything at it in terms of exercise, food, acupuncture, therapy, all of those things to really help manage it so I don't slip down into that spiral. Because once I get into a spiral, sometimes it's really so hard to get back up again. And it could take a month to get back up again. And people don't realize. And then I've got to show up at work in my corporate office in my corporate suit, and I'm sitting in a meeting, and they're all looking at me, and I don't hear a word they're saying. It's that wah, wah, wah. And then they're expecting me to answer and be professional. And that's really challenging when your mind is really cloudy. So it shows up really differently. And initially I thought, okay, I'll just be sad and that kind of stuff, but it's more than that. It's these physical symptoms that really prevent you from kind of functioning as you really would like to function. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And, I'll even share some of mine.
Please
I'm a very
do.
happy, bubbly person. So my depression kind of looked like sleeping all the time, not really focusing. I originally graduated from grad school as a nurse practitioner. So I went through a phase where I was very stagnant. I had this master's degree, but I didn't study. I had no desire to study. I didn't really want to do a lot of stuff. But because of the people that were around me, I don't want to say I was forced, but I have so many positive people in my life. It's like, we're going here, we're doing this. So I feel like I didn't hit rock bottom because of the people that God has placed in my life. So another thing that's key here, this is a new state for me. I haven't been here that long. So I didn't really have my regular close friends and family to go to. So in all that I experienced while I was going through the depression, I always remembered in the back of my mind that I could do it. But while I was going through the depression, I just didn't have the drive. I knew there was things that I needed to complete. I knew that there was things that I would complete. I just didn't know how and when. And I've been a nurse for like 10 and a half years, so I have the knowledge base to do the right thing. But I kept saying, no, I can't be going through depression. I was like, no, not me. But then, one day, a good friend of mine, she called. She was like, have you taken your exam? I'm like, no. She's like, why are you napping all the time? Why aren't you exercising like you normally do? I said, girl, I don't know. I said, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I said, I don't even want to be a nurse practitioner. She was like, hello, there's a problem. She was like, you do want to be a nurse practitioner. This is your lifelong dream, your goal. You need to go to a doctor. Have you been to the doctor since you've been in Minnesota? I'm like, girl, no, I'm fine. That was major for me, major. My friend who was 8 hours away, she realized what I was going through. She's also a nurse. She was like, you need to schedule an appointment. So I went to work the next day. I told my coworker, who also kind of had seen some changes because I had been on the job for almost a year. She was like, there's something wrong. She actually helped me find a medical provider. I went in there, laid everything down. I was very transparent. I was very intentional, told her everything that I was dealing with. She said, I think you're depressed.
Yeah, and you said something very key, I think, and that is getting help from other people. Because like you, I had friends who had to make the appointment for me and get me their help because we can't do it ourselves. So being open to your friends and saying, look, I'm just not feeling well emotionally, and they will help you and they will hold you accountable. And that's really key in the success of healing and managing it. So thank you for sharing that.
Again, Tasha, thank you so much for having the courage to put what you put on Facebook. I saw that, I read that, and I applauded you for doing that. One of the things that we need to do to break the stigma about mental health in the African American community and other communities is begin to talk about it. So Sylvia, thank you for cracking that egg open so that we could begin to talk about it. Again, we are going to take a 10-minute break. During that time, Sylvia will be at the table back there with copies of her book. I believe that she is also willing to sign copies of the book. Is that right, Sylvia?
Yeah, I'll sign it.
All right. So again, 10-minute intermission. Please support the bar. Go and have a drink, relax. If you need to get to the restroom, make it to the restroom. We'll listen to some good music before your next speaker, as well as the next piece of spoken word that Kennedy will perform.
All right. If everyone could please take their seats, that would be wonderful. So I know that there is quite a line for Dr. Bartley's book, which is phenomenal. She will be here at the end as well, and she will be signing books at the end of the event, so you will have that opportunity. So I am going to bring up Kennedy Pounds again before we hear our final speaker of the night, and she's going to do an original piece for us that she wrote in light of the unfolding events that we've experienced here and across the nation. So let's welcome Kennedy Pounds.
This poem is untitled. Hands up, don't shoot. Another black body killed by the police, another life lost, their only crime being black in America. Hands up, don't shoot. We have created a culture that makes police brutality seem normal. Too many black men are dying and not enough justice is being served. Hands up, don't shoot. We need to fight this system of oppression that continues to put down black people. Hands up, don't shoot. Police are taught to shoot first and ask questions later, which does nothing to save a life. Hands up, don't shoot. Law enforcement is given the power to be judge, jury, and executioner without any accountability. Hands up, don't shoot. This system will continue to fail people of color unless something is done to end this cycle of violence. Hands up, don't shoot. That could be someone's son. No, that was someone's son. Someone's daughter, someone's brother, someone's sister. Someone was waiting for them to come home, but they never made it. Hands up, don't shoot. Maybe if their skin were lighter, a little less black, a little more white, then maybe. Hands up, don't shoot. Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Jamar Clark, Philando Catstill, Keith Scott, Marcus Golden, Jafford Smith, Cordell, Handy, all shot and killed by the police, all black. Hands up, don't shoot.
Let's give Kennedy another round of applause. This has really been an amazing evening. I knew it would be phenomenal because of the speakers that we asked to present tonight and all of you coming out to support this event. So my hopes were high, and I feel that we have exceeded my hopes in terms of everything that's been poured into us tonight. And we're not done. We still have one powerful speaker left on our roster. Before I bring him up, I want to say that one of the things that was amazing is that when Marquise and I talked about putting on Assata Speaks, we said we don't just want this to be a one-time event. We want to build a culture around this notion of bringing people together to focus on societal issues, issues pertaining to race, social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, and give all of us a gathering space who want to be inspired and who want to make a difference in the world. And we said we want to hold this event every single month, right? Now, one of the things that blew me away tonight was as we were enjoying the event as it was unfolding, Mary, who is a key staff member here at Brave New Workshop, said, we would love to have you here every month for Assata Speaks. I almost like had tears because we love this venue. We think that it's the perfect place for us all together. And I'm just thankful for our connection. Thank you, Mary. That's Mary over there, you guys. Thank you so much for your support of our vision and our community. So it's now my honor and privilege to bring up our final speaker of the night, a young man by the name of Eli Darris. And it's really interesting how I met Eli. I don't want to give away what he's going to talk about, but the way that we met was just, it was over the phone. And he told me that, you know, in the future he was going to connect with me and be a part of whatever I was doing. We had no idea at the time that I was going to run for mayor. And Eli actually joined my campaign, and he was a pivotal part of my campaign for mayor. He is amazing in the community. He is an activist, a community organizer, and now he works for the ACLU of Minnesota. And he was spent most of his time over the last couple days at the legislature pushing for key policy changes. So with that, I want to bring up Eli Darris, who's going to talk about From Life to Life. Let's welcome him.
Proud of you. Kill it.
Start this. There we go. Welcome, everyone, to Assata Speaks. It is my absolute honor and privilege to be before all of you tonight. This is phenomenal. When Nakima first told me about it, it was a no-brainer. Yes, I told her instantly. She said, would you? I said, yes. I didn't even hear the rest of the question. Would you? Yes. It got to that point with Nakima. Initially, when I was part of the campaign, we would wrestle around on certain issues, and she would allow things to play out. If the campaign team decided to go left, then she was like, well, we should go right. If the staff overwhelmingly wanted to go one way, she would say, okay. And we would go that way. And almost to a situation, almost to a situation, we ended up having to go the other way. And so it got to the point where we would still push back. But as the campaign went on, I just realized, I'm going to offer a little bit less resistance, and I'm going to take note just a little bit more. Phenomenal. Thank you for running. Thank you for running. My topic today is life after life. Frederick Douglass once said that struggle is ordained. He said that those who would want the rain without the thunder and the lightning, or those who would want crop without tilling the land, struggle is ordained. Struggle is a beautiful thing. As a matter of fact, Assata, it actually has several meanings. One of the meanings, the one that I'm going to speak on, is she who struggles. Obviously, I'm not a she, but it is she who struggles. It is also complete. That's another definition of Assata, but she who struggles. Struggle is ordained. And my life has actually been one of deep and intense struggle, almost from the moment I was born. There's actually a story that when I was born in San Fernando, California, actually I learned it in Sun Valley, California a few months ago. It almost gave me an identity crisis. I was like, I spent my whole life thinking I was born. So I'm still going to say San Fernando Valley, California. I've been saying it for 30-some years. So San Fernando Valley, 1984, March 9th. I was told that when I was born, there was actually a blackout throughout the entire hospital and that it took time for the generators to kick on. I came into this world with struggle. Struggle is ordained. And so struggle has been a thread that has been through the entirety of my life. And so I'm at the point now where I don't run from it. As a matter of fact, I run to it. There was a particular time in my life, actually spread over several decades, in which I struggled mightily.
When I was 15 years old, I was arrested, I was convicted, and I was actually ultimately sentenced to life in prison. Now, what they don't do is they don't allow you to run into the corner, lift some weights, like Popeye, run and grab a can and pop some spinach and get bigger and then go in with the big boys. When they certify you, they send you in with the big boys immediately. And so you have 14-year-olds in there serving life in prison, 15-year-olds in there serving life in prison. You have 16 and 17-year-olds in there serving life in prison. Now, all of the youngsters in there don't have life. Some of them stole too many cars. Some of them was convicted of assault. Some of them have drug offenses, but they're in there with adults. And so when I first came into the prison, after this conviction, after a judge told me as a teenager, I sentence you to spend the rest of your natural life in the care of the Commissioner of Corrections, gavel. I almost buckled. I almost fainted. Struggle. And so when he told me that, I actually buckled against the attorney who was next to me, who acted like he was so repulsed by the fact that my body would touch his. He recoiled, and if it wasn't for the officers who was behind me, who couldn't wait to usher me out of there, I probably would have just fell onto the ground. They grabbed me. They got me on up out of there. They said, we're going to send you about your way. You're going to be in here for the rest of your life. Never to be seen again in society. This is what they thought. And so I get to the prison, and the unit is just like deathly quiet. It's so strange. And so I walk inside of this prison. No more than 10 yards in, I hear someone scream from the top tier, "Fresh meat!" As soon as this joker shouted that out, the unit came to life in like a cacophonous roar. Right? And like, I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I have to spend the rest of my life like this? Struggle. I literally had to decide, as I was going through those days, I had to make a conscious decision whether or not I was going to actually live that next day. So I had to literally decide to live because it was rough. And I actually existed. I didn't live. There was no life. I was existing. I actually existed in the midst of chaotic and destructive struggle inside of prison for years. But there was a pivotal moment in my life. There was a pivotal moment. We're going to talk about several pivotal moments, but this is the first pivotal moment. Who knows anything about call and response? What does call and response mean? So when I say something, y'all say something back. That's call and response. I'm going to take some of y'all who've never been to a Baptist church to church. Everybody say church. Everybody say church. Good. Now, that's call and response. And so there was a pivotal moment in my life. Say pivotal. So the pivotal moment is I found myself having gone to the hole so many times for fighting, for destroying, for rebelling, for resisting, for refusing to just accept and embrace this as my reality. There was one time after probably 50 times of going to the hole, and they would always put me inside of these closed fronted cells, right, so that I couldn't shout out. They could just close the little chuck hole, and it would basically encase me inside. It would put me in a tomb in which I couldn't communicate with any other inmates if they so chose to close that chuck hole. And so I found myself inside of this enclosed cell, and I was watching debris come from the top tier, build itself. And like there was a huge pile of pillows and blankets and like legal paperwork because they didn't think they was going to win their appeal, and just all kind of stuff that I was watching just pile up. And then suddenly I saw this little spark come down and hit that pile. And when it hit that pile, it took a couple minutes. And I was watching curiously to see whether or not some officer was going to run in here and stomp it out. They didn't. And it makes sense to me because there was a riot going on at this time. And whenever they came into the unit not wearing full riot gear, they were assaulted. And so they just wasn't finna run us out of this unit. Whew, it lights up. I said, oh my God, this prison is burning. I'm watching the prison burn. And as I watched this prison burn and as I watched this fire get higher and higher, I remember feeling a certain sense of freedom inside of me. I remember thinking to myself, I never felt so free in my life watching the prison burn. Now, of course, I already learned that this was a false freedom. Sometimes we can live a life that's a shadow life that we think is real, and it's not really real, but it looks real, but it's not real. And so this feeling of freedom, it wasn't real. But what was real? Say fire. Say fire. With fire comes what? Smoke. Now, what kind of cell was I in? So the smoke has to go where? So I watched this stuff billow into the room, right? Now, I had flooded my cell because I wanted to participate in the festivities of the riot. So I had a whole floor full of toilet water. Say toilet water. I had a whole floor of toilet water. And the smoke is billowing. And it comes into the room. Struggle is ordained. And so now I have a decision to make as I'm watching the smoke come in and it's starting to come down real snake-like. I could either keep standing or I can hit the deck. Now, if I hit the deck, I'm hitting what? Toilet water. Now, sometimes people say water, like they would drink that. And then I have to typically correct and say, what kind of water? So I'm so glad y'all said toilet water. It's a beautiful thing because now I had to make a decision. Do I keep standing or hit the deck? If I hit the deck, I'm inside of sewage. If I keep standing, I die. Most people actually die in a fire from smoke inhalation. They don't die from the flames. They die from the smoke. I guess intuitively, I must have known that. I hit the deck. And so I found myself in toilet water in the middle of some small town, in the middle of Minnesota, no family, kicking the door, screaming at the COs to turn the fans on. And I recall thinking to myself, I don't want to die like this, but struggle is ordained. And so I said to something, I don't know what I was saying, something, I said, hey, something, if I make it out of this, I will get out of here and I will finally read the books that all of these old school brothers kept throwing at me. They was throwing books at me and throwing them at me. And I was actually taking them books and I was stuffing them joints up under my mattress because the mattresses is like this thin in there. Stuffing them joints. And so I was able to raise up the bed a little bit and, help with my neck issues just a little bit. And so I said, if I get out of here, I'm going to read those books. I made it out. And I stayed true to my word. I began reading them books, and everything changed in my life. I began to learn about my history, my heritage, my culture. Who am I? Why am I? Where am I? I armed myself with knowledge. And in arming myself with knowledge, I prepared myself for a life that I didn't know I was preparing myself for. This life, out here. Now, life is going to sometimes throw things in our direction. Say life. Life is going to sometimes throw some things at us. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do? Are we going to just lay on down and die? or are we going to struggle, resist, and overcome? Like, these are choices. Like, you can choose to stand, breathe in the smoke, and die because it's a tough situation, and this is an easy way out. I mean, the oxygen is choked out of your cells, and you literally just like pass out. It's an easy way to go. The other option is to hit the deck and struggle to live and wake up the next day. Sometimes we got to make decisions to live and to potentially have a chance at life. And so I chose life. Again, sometimes life is going to throw some things at us, and we have to decide, what are we going to do? There's life after life. There's life after the things that are thrown at us. But sometimes I guess they can seem so overwhelming, right? So difficult to overcome that we can succumb to the very thing that if we just go through it, it will make us better. It'll make us stronger, right? Life on the other side of whatever that life incident is could be so beautiful, so wonderful. Now, here I am standing in front of you all, telling you that as a juvenile, I was sentenced to what? Life. And now I'm out here living what? Life. Something must have happened. Yeah. I'm obviously not in there serving life. I'm obviously out here living life. There was life after that life. You see, when he sentenced me to life, in actuality, he was sentencing me to what? Death. Say it again. What? Death. He was sentencing me to die in there. It's that shadow life, whereas something may seem to be one thing, but it's actually another thing. So for him to say life, and he's really talking about death, this is the nature of the reality that we're sometimes facing. How do we define our reality? How do we define what's real and what's not real? How do we make the decisions to live even in tough situations? Even when things seem to be one way, when in reality they're a total different way. How? Struggle is ordained. Frederick Douglass, he said that power concedes nothing without a demand. Nothing. What is he just going to give it up? I mean, for what? Why would it just give itself up to you? Even to make the ground yield crop, we have to break and till that soil. We got to work for it. Then we got to wait for it. Then we got to work for it once we waited for it. Because you got to go and now go and collect. You got to go and reap. That's hard work too. That's struggle. It's all struggle, and it's ordained, and it can make us or break us. But here's the beauty. There's life after that. There's life after the struggle. They may seem to be overwhelming. You see, Dr. Bartley was talking about depression. Deep, dark depression that can envelop one's soul. Now remember, sometimes I was making a decision whether or not to even live the next day. I have friends who have committed suicide as juveniles in there. They didn't want to live. Not in there, not facing that stuff every single day. No. No. So some of my friends, Sammy Lamont Johnson being one of them, came in at 16, committed suicide at 26. Decided that this struggle was too difficult. That song that we played is actually one of the songs that we played at his memorial. We forced that prison to allow us to have a memorial. They said, what? No, keep it moving. They switch you out the next day when something like that happens. Nothing stops. You got to get out there and make that money for them. We said, no, sir. We're going to honor our friend. And so that's actually the song that one of our friends got up and sang at his memorial. Powerful song. And every time I hear it, it takes me back to Sammy. As the years go on, I'll actually talk more and more and more about Sammy. His struggle was ordained. And I'm going to make sure the world feels his struggle. Now, let me say this about what Dr. Bartley was saying in terms of the darkness that can envelop one's soul. there is another side once we get through them dark times. But we have to keep in mind that, yes, it's dark and it's difficult, but there's going to be another side of this. We can get to the other side of that darkness. We can get there. We can get there. There's life after that, right? And I know it's difficult to keep in mind in the midst of the difficulty, in the midst of the struggle, that this struggle will not last, that the sun will come out. I know it's difficult, but we got to keep that at the forefront of our minds, that there is life after whatever life throws at us. There will still be life on the other side of that. Say life. Say life. Say life. We have to live. Now, in my last seconds up here, I actually began studying academically, and I excelled. I got college degrees and certifications and all kinds. I didn't even go to high school, right? But when I started studying, it lit my mind on fire. I ultimately transferred all of that to studying law. And in studying law, I fought, got that life sentence reversed on appeal, came out here and said, Nikema, I want to be part of your campaign. And she said yes. And she said less. I learned that there was going to be life after that. Now, even when the campaign ended, I said, oh, this is the end of life. Because I wanted her as mayor. But there was life after that. We're not done. The things that I learned as her field director has helped me now in the work that I'm doing now. I'm actually fighting to end life for juveniles in Minnesota. And once we finish that campaign, it's going to be life after that. We're going to move on to the next thing. Struggle is ordained. I thank you all for allowing me to speak into your life. This has been a beautiful event. It has been fulfilling and everything that I thought it would be. We out here. We struggling. We not playing no games with them.
Let's give it up again for Eli Darris. Woo! Y'all can do better than that. This man was sentenced to life without parole as a juvenile, and he survived and he got out, and now he is working for the community. If that is not the power of redemption, I don't know what is. Wow. Wow.
All right, you hear that, Eli?
Yes,
we're going to be all right.
That was so powerful. Some of you did not know what to expect tonight, but you got more than you bargained for, right? Because I'm just walking out just full, you know, and just overwhelmed by the power of those stories that we heard coming from the people within our community who have struggled, who have fought, who have persevered, who have overcome, and who have lived to tell the story so that we can run the next leg of the race. So I want to thank each and every one of our wonderful speakers. Matt Moberg, please stand. Woo. So we can thank you once again for your powerful story. Always waking, never woke. Thank you. Thank you to Dr. Sylvia Bartley, who spoke about the gift of being black and blue. Please stand up, Sylvia, so that we can honor you.
Yes.
I mean, Dr. Sylvia Bartley.
That's right.
And thank you to everyone who purchased her book tonight. Yes. She actually sold out of what she had here, but she went to her car and got some more. So she has some more available to you all. And thank you to Eliza Darris.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. My goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just can only imagine the young people who are inspired by your story, people who are incarcerated who are inspired by your story, those of us out here with you living life who are inspired by your story. Thank you for persevering and coming back and pouring into all of us. It makes a difference. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who made this program possible tonight, including the wonderful staff, a brave new workshop, yes. Harry in the back, our technician.
Woo. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Mary for being the orchestrator of everything that happened here tonight. Thank you to our amazing DJ Cypreme.
On the wheels of steel.
If you are looking to have an event, I recommend checking out DJ Cypreme. He is wonderful. We've worked with him a lot, and we will continue working with him. When we told him about Assata Speaks, he's like, I'm on board. Count me in. If you do it every month, I'm on board. So thank you, DJ Cypreme. The young man who is sitting at that table, his name is Tarek Clark. Tarek actually came to our office one day out of the blue. We run a consulting firm called Black Pearl LLC right in North Minneapolis. And one day he showed up, and I was in a meeting or on the phone. He talked to my husband. He said, I want to be an intern. And then a couple weeks later, he actually sent an email reaching out to me saying, I want to work for Black Pearl. I want to support you in whatever you're doing. So I reached out and said, okay, you ready? We got our first event. Can you make it? That was this morning. And Tarek was like, I will be there.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
He is a law student at Mitchell Hamlin in his first year of law school.
All right, let's applaud that. Yes.
So as a former law professor, I'm looking forward to working with him, pouring into him, encouraging him, and pushing him to give back to the community, which I know that he will.
Yes.
Thank you to Kennedy Pounds for inspiring us with their wonderful spoken word artistry.
Spoken word artist extraordinaire.
Thank you to our lovely bartenders and staff who served us here tonight. And thank you to each and every one of you who took time out of your night to be here. You didn't know what to expect, but you came by faith. You came by faith, and you all made this event possible, and you made it successful. And you opened the door for this to be a series every single month that we can enjoy. So as Marquise said earlier, when you come out again, bring someone, because now you have stories to tell.
Yes.
Right? Something has been shared with you and poured into you that you can now pour into other people. And that's what this is all about, paying it forward so that we can bring forward change in our community. Thank you to my wonderful husband, Marquise Armstrong. Thank you. All of your love and support and encouragement. So closing words, please, Marquise.
Thank you and good night.
All right, thank you, guys. Dr. Sylvia will be in the back with her books. Feel free to mingle and network. It's important to get to know each other. God bless you all. Thank you again.